Welcome back to AMTV News. I'm your anchor, Topher Morrison. It's finally Friday, October 26, 2012. Syria's deep state. It's made in the USA and Saudi Arabia. According to Russian General Nikolai Makarov, Syrian rebels are now toting U.S.-made Stinger surface-to-air missiles. The general wants the issue cleared up as to who delivered the weapons. Stinger missiles. Where have I heard of those before? Yes. Tony Cartolucci in a sobering analysis on the history of Syria recast Hafez Assad, the father of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, not as simply the blood-crazed autocrat who arbitrarily crushed his people, the monster of the 1980s the media has made him out to be. The legacy he passed on, albeit brute and autocratic, was actually one which sought much, like Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, to rid his country of violent fundamentalists. Unable to find a foothold in much of the Middle East during those years, exiled extremists from all over the Arab world found a rallying point in America's clandestine war in Afghanistan, waged against the Soviet Empire. According to a West Point Combating Terrorism Center report published in 2008, the early 1980s saw only a trickle of insurgents coming from the Arab heartland. But with the flow of weapons, training, outreach, and cash from the United States and Saudi Arabia, dreams of jihad were finally realized. According to West Point, quote, "One important process was the Syrian regime of Hafez Assad's brutal campaign against the jihadi movement in Syria, led by the fighting vanguard of the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood. The crackdown initiated an exodus of vanguard militants to neighboring Arab states. By 1984, large numbers of these men began making their way from exile in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Jordan towards southeastern Afghanistan to fight the Soviets." In other words, while Hafez Assad may have used an iron hand, expert testimony and an objective perspective tends to balance the lopsided narrative proffered by the media. Couple this with the fact that both Romney and Obama agree that when it comes to Syria, it's hard to see where the activists begin and the terrorists end.
For us to get more entangled militarily in Syria is a serious step. And we have to do so making absolutely certain that we know who we are helping, that we're not putting arms in the hands of folks who eventually could turn them against us or our allies in the region. But what we can't do is to simply suggest that, as Governor Romney at times has suggested, that giving heavy weapons, for example, to the Syrian opposition is a simple proposition that would lead us to be safer over the long term.
And so the right course for us is working through our partners and with our own resources to identify responsible parties within Syria, organize them, bring them together in a form of if not government, a form of council that can take the lead in Syria, and then make sure they have the arms necessary to defend themselves. We do need to make sure that they don't have arms that get into the wrong hands, that those arms could be used to hurt us down the road. We need to make sure as well that we coordinate this effort with our allies, and particularly with Israel. But the Saudis and the Qatari and the Turks are all very concerned about this. They're willing to work with us. We need to have a very effective leadership effort in Syria, making sure that the insurgents there are armed, and that the insurgents that become armed are people who will be the responsible parties. As you hear from intelligence sources even today, the insurgents are highly disparate. They haven't come together. They haven't formed a unity group, a council of some kind. That needs to happen. America can help that happen. And we need to make sure they have the arms they need to carry out the very important role, which is getting rid of Assad.
It is a wonder why 30 years later, we are still allowing central planners to pick the winners and losers. Capturing every corner of the alternative media, watch AMTV News Monday through Friday. And in 10 days, on November 5th, look forward to the launch of AMTVmedia.com, home of the AMTV network. This is AMTV, the voice of independence.